How to make floating objects in Unity. First, if you wanna make these waves, watch the video before this one. You will find in the description the link for this code. We're gonna start with right click, create a new script and open the script. First thing we need is to calculate the wave height. To calculate the wave height, we're gonna use the same equation we used to make the wave in shader graph. So we're gonna need float for the power, another one for the speed and frequency. And we're gonna need another one for water level. Water level is the y of the water object position in world space. So we're gonna start with a new function. The function gonna take the x and z of the position and return the wave height in this position. We're gonna write the same equation we use in shader graph and return the wave height plus the water level. You can think about the water level as an offset. Now that's what we need to calculate the wave height. Now let's make buoyancy. We need a float for buoyancy and another one for max buoyancy. Let's make a new function for buoyancy. We need the object position, so vector3 position equal transform the position. And we need the wave height. The wave height equal the function we just made, and we're gonna pass the x and z for the object position. Now we need to check if the object is underwater. So depth equal wave height minus the y of the object position. And if the depth is higher than 0, we're gonna apply force to the object. The force is gonna be the minimum between buoyancy multiplied by the depth and max buoyancy. We're using the max buoyancy so we can limit how much force we apply to the object. And because the force we need to be a vector3, not float, so we're gonna multiply it with a vector3 dot up. And now let's apply the force. We need the rigid body to apply the force. So rigid body, and we're gonna get component in the start. And now rigid body dot add force. We're applying the force using the acceleration force mode. And now let's call our function. Because we're using rigid body, we're gonna use fixed update instead of the normal update. And this is simply how to make a floating object. Back to Unity, we need to use the same values we used in shader graph for the waves, for power, speed and frequency. And water level gonna be the y position of the water object. As you can see, water level. And here we go, now this is a simple floating object. Now let's add water drag so it looks more realistic. Back to the script, we need a float for the original drag, another one for original angular drag, and two more, one for the water drag and another one for a water angular drag. And we need a boolean to check if we are underwater. Now in the start function, we're gonna take the rigid body drag and angular drag as our original drag. So original drag equal rigid body dot drag, and the same with angular drag. And in the buoyancy function, if we are not underwater, we're gonna set the rigid body drag equal the water drag, and same with angular drag. And water drag gonna be true, so we don't change it every frame. And we're gonna check if the depth isn't higher than 0. We're gonna check if the object is underwater. We're gonna return the drag and angular drag to the original one. So that means the object is over the water. And now is underwater equal false. Back to Unity, I tried some values until I got these ones. You can copy them. And here we go, now we have a much better floating object. So now our object using only one floating point, which is the object itself. But what if we need multiple floating points? So let's do it now. Now back to the code, we need an array of transforms for the floating points. This is gonna be the points that carry your object. And we're gonna change the boolean for is underwater. We're gonna make it an integer, so we can check if all the points is underwater or not. Now we need a loop for all the floating points. We're gonna copy this part of code, and instead of the transform position, we need the point position. And we're gonna separate the drag and depth check. Now instead of using add force, we're gonna use add force at position. So we're gonna apply force at the floating point position instead of the object itself. Now in the start of the function is underwater equals 0. And with every point we check if the depth is higher than 0, that means this point is underwater. We're gonna add 1 to the count. After we finish the loop, if underwater is higher than 0, this means we have 1 or more than 1 point underwater. We're gonna set the rigid body drag to the water drag, and else we're gonna set the rigid body drag to the original drag. And that's all we need now. Back to Unity, we need 4 points for the floating points. You add points depending on how your object look like. I'm gonna add 4 points, 1 on each end of the object, and add them to the floating points array. I'm gonna lower the Buoyancy value, and here you go. Now you have a floating object in Unity.